Welcome to the One Shot Effect podcast. This is the 19th episode. Today I'm joined with Michelle and
Paul.
Paul. And today we're going to be talking about all of their interests, which are varied, and their journeys. So, yeah, would you guys like to start and just share your life journey?
Sure. How much time have you got, Felix?
Or,
So we we met in a mushroom journey. That's how our journey together began. We've obviously had many life experiences leading up to that, but our journey together began when a mutual friend who was holding space for Michel's journey invited me to join and journey with Michel. And we connected in that journey, and we've pretty much been together ever since, working together, living together, just exploring life together. And we've been on this journey together. We've done the sacred mushrooms together many times, hero dose journeys, smaller dose experiences. We have very shared interests. We both love nature. We're both massage therapists. We're both counselors. Michelle has a lot of other skills that she'll tell you about, which is also part of our offering. The synergy between us and the way we work together seems to attract the right people into our field.
that's really beautiful. I'm curious, what first drew you guys to mushrooms? Or I suppose we can start with Paul's story and then Michelle's, or as whatever.
Yeah, sure. So mine was a huge leap of faith at the time. I was invited to Africa Burn 6-7 years ago now, and in the camp I was staying in, I met a couple who worked with sacred mushrooms, and they reintroduced me to sacred mushrooms. At that point in my life, I'd been in recovery from alcohol and drug addiction for almost a decade, and hadn't taken any sort of mind-altering substances. But I took a leap of faith, and I took some mushrooms at Africa Burn, and that sort of gave me an inkling of a way forward. And when I got back to Cape Town, I went to Monica Kromhout in Somerset West and experienced my first 5-gram journey. Talk about your life-changing experience. I came out of my journey and I just knew straight away this was my calling. This was what I wanted to do. And started working with Monica, holding space with Monica, and then eventually, after a couple of years getting experience, started holding space on my own. Then obviously through the mushrooms, I met Michelle and we began holding space together, and we've been doing so ever since.
Beautiful. Yeah, I've actually also worked with Monica in holding space and watching, and she's really an incredible woman. Someone who I would love to have on the podcast, but her health has been a bit up and down.
Absolutely.
Yeah, sending lots of good love to Monica and all the Somaland people.
Yes,
And
yes.
yeah, I'd be curious, what's your journey been of holding space? And yeah, how do you see that? Do you see it as a job? Do you see it as a duty? Do you see it as a calling, a purpose? And it just
Well, it's all of those things, really. It's it's what we do. It's a part of how we make our living, but it's so much more than that. We don't just take on any journey just because the people have the funds and are willing to do so. We vet quite carefully people. We look at family history, psychological history. Our overriding concern is to do no harm. We want people to come out of the experience in a better space than they went into the experience. Over the years together, we've learned, or we can tell intuitively who is going to benefit from a journey and who isn't. And although we don't always like to make the call, sometimes we have to, and sometimes against our better judgment, we go ahead with a journey that we feel perhaps we shouldn't have. And generally the results are not what the people hoped for. So we have learned to trust our intuition over the years.
Yeah, there's definitely a journey of trusting your intuition. What has been your relationship with your intuition over your lives? Have you always
Yeah.
trusted it the same way?
I've had a very up and down. I think for most of my life, I didn't really have much intuition. I sort of stumbled through life from one scenario to the next. It's only really since I've been working with mushrooms that I've got more in touch with myself. Well, first, I suppose when I went into recovery, when I stopped numbing myself with alcohol and drugs, that was the beginning of my intuition kicking in. But it really has only come to the forefront now that I've been working with mushrooms. And I think,
100%.
I know Michelle. Michelle is a very intuitive lady. I'm blown away sometimes by her level of intuition. It's like up here, mine's sort of down here somewhere. So I tend to bow to Michelle's better judgment. She's incredibly intuitive, and I would go so far as to say psychic at times.
Anything you can add on that, Michelle?
Yeah, Felix, it's been a lifetime journey. I think I came onto this planet from a little girl being able to speak to angels and fairies in the garden, and people thinking I'm a total weirdo. But yeah, so followed a long path of, if you want to call it, I find today people use the word spirituality very, very loosely, and for me, it's never been that. It's not a trendy word of spirituality. It was more a fascination about other worlds and philosophies, and going deeper into the psyche, not just this physical being. So yeah, I started at a very young age I became a bit of a workshop junkie at one stage, wanting to do every single workshop and course you could possibly find on anything alternative. And it was always my dream, to not follow the mainstream, the way of life. So I've done everything from Reiki courses. I'm a Reiki master, to crystal courses, to then I went and started learning about Qigong. It was always a fascination of mine to learn about something ancient, but Tai Chi was a little bit more masculine for me because I've always been a dancer, from ballet to modern to tap but I always was looking for something deeper that connected you to a deeper space than just dancing. So I discovered Qigong, actually, quite interestingly, through actually being sick. And someone suggested I go and do Qigong, and it became an absolute passion of mine. And I eventually did a course with a lady from the Philippines who was quite phenomenal. And she started teaching me about Kundalini awakenings and Tantra. So I started delving into that world, and that really became quite empowering as a woman, because for me, the fascination was always, yes, men as well, but to empower women, especially females who have had trauma, either sexually or in relationships, or even just lack of confidence. So then I started studying Kundalini massages and working with men, but a lot of women that had lost touch with themselves, and that's always been a very big passion of mine, to help women start getting more in touch with themselves and being more empowered, and then that led to me going on. I'm a big hiker. I love hiking, as I see you do as well. And I started going hiking, and I started seeing more and more mushrooms in the forest. And I was hiking with a friend one day, and I just happened to say, I'm fascinated. I want to do a mushroom journey. And she connected me with someone who knows Paul and I. And then my mushroom journey began, actually quite strangely, going through a divorce. I was going through a very, very sudden divorce, and I decided I'm not going to go on antidepressants and tranquilizers and all the medication. And I got drawn to doing a journey, and that was how my life shifted. And after that first journey, I literally did one every 2 to 3 weeks. And then my mom passed away, and I decided to deal with the grief. I'm going to do more journeys. So I sort of got quite I don't want to use the word addicted because one can't get addicted, but yeah, it became a really, for me, that was the path I wanted to use to help get through the divorce
Maybe
and the
even a
grief.
deep relationship or a
Yeah,
deep
and more of a connection to
balance.
myself.
Mm.
Yeah, and some other realm that I believed, can help us get through these things without rushing off to doctors. Not that I'm not knocking any doctors, but to go not rush off to medication. And that's how my path began. And then I started combining that with hiking for a while, and I formed a little hiking group of women that didn't want to hike on their own. And then that led to people starting to asked more and more about journeys. And then Paul and I met, and we had realized we had a lot in common. And our dream at the moment is to start holding workshops, like weekend retreats for couples, to teach them how to become more intimate through massage and through using a bit of mushrooms, and learn how to connect with each other from the heart and get more intimate together. And that is our big passion at the moment. So we're looking for a venue at the moment where we can hold maybe 2-day retreats where a couple can come, and we teach them how to massage each other and go for a nice hike together and work with mushrooms in a sacred way of connecting. We prefer to hold space one-on-one. We have done small little groups. We don't like big groups. We find we like the intimacy of a one-on-one journey. It gives us more time to really focus on that person individually and hold them in a very safe space. And we've had females come to us with a lot of trauma, and they say they feel really safe to be able to be alone and express without being in a group boring. So we find that really works for us,
That's really amazing. I'm really happy to hear that. Wow, what a journey.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
incredible that we both sort of arrived at this spot in completely different directions, and yet, as I say, we're both counselors. We've both studied counseling. We've both counseled individuals and couples, and we both are massage therapists. We've both trained as massage therapists. It's we see the importance and the interaction between all these modalities leading up to a mushroom journey, where we meet with the people. You don't just arrive and we're strangers. We always meet with the people prior to a journey, and we'll sit for an hour and we'll have a conversation, which often becomes a counseling session. And that leads to a sort of a trust. Almost a therapeutic. That's the word I'm looking for. A therapeutic connection, between us and the journeyer, prior to the journey, through the journey, and most importantly, after the journey. We don't just disappear into the sunset. We're available if they need help with processing or integration, or if they just want to talk to someone who has an inkling of what they've experienced, because it's as you know yourself, it's an experience which is so magnificent and so far from the ordinary that if you haven't experienced it, you can never understand it, because even after all our journeys, we don't have the words to explain what a journey is. It's and each journey is unique. Having journeyed many times, each journey is completely different to the previous one and to the next one, and different for everybody and perceived in different ways. So yeah, it's if you haven't journeyed, it is a big leap of faith to allow yourself to be in this position of vulnerability with relative strangers, and we don't take that lightly. We appreciate the trust.
Hmm. And what did your guys' lives look like before your first journey? Would you say that's a very transformative moment, or even just, yeah, how did your life take more of a holistic turn? Is that a
Do you want to?
Okay, Felix, for me, as I said before, I've always been absolutely fascinated with the bigger picture than this world that we live in right now, and this connection that you can have with so many other realms. And for me, it was learning more about, evolving with we came to this earth to, I believe, evolve and grow, and some people don't, and they come back again if you believe in that. but I've always believed in another life and reincarnation, and the fact that I've never wanted to come back and repeat the same shit again. Excuse my language, but you know what I mean. And for me, it was always discovering, how do I evolve on this earth? How do I find other ways to connect more? And when I say spirituality, I'm not talking religion, because for me, the spirituality and religion had a very different energy. But for me, the spiritual path was finding out, how do I evolve from things that were holding me back from fully embracing life on this earth. And, having dealt with a lot of trauma as a child and going through life, for me, what mushrooms have taught me is to trust the flow of life more. I was a little bit of a control freak before doing mushrooms. I was very involved with the corporate world. Even though I followed a very spiritual path, I had to earn money. So I got very involved in the corporate world, which it served me, but it wasn't my passion. So I was always yearning and searching for something greater than that, not just to earn money, And then when I discovered mushrooms, I realized, let go of the control, because, as you know, in a journey, the more control you have, the more difficult it is. So it's taught me a lot about trusting the flow of life, trusting that everything happens in divine, perfect timing. Nothing's by accident. Even if sometimes we want to control it, we learn, and trusting that intuitive feeling that is much bigger than just reading in a book, or, it's easy to go and do a course and follow workshops, but to actually live it. And for me, that was where I got to a stage where saying, I've got all the certificates, I've done all the courses, I want to live this. I want to teach people how to live it and put it into practice. And I think that's what mushrooms have taught me. And they keep reminding me, because every now and again, I'm human, we fall off the track a bit and, get into a bit of panic or fear or whatever, and just keep reminding me that everything's happening exactly as it's meant to, and let go of the control and just trust the universe and trust the flow, and that has been a very big lesson for me, and one that I'm very grateful to the mushrooms for, and realizing nothing happens by accident. Even everybody you meet for a reason in your life, and having come through a very, very tough divorce, where I thought my marriage would never end, to have to realize that was meant to be, and it served a purpose at that stage, but it wasn't meant to be to go on. And that's been something to make peace with that. And, when my mom passed away, which was in Durban, it wasn't in Cape Town, and I got there after she passed away, and to realize as well that that's exactly as it was meant to be. As much as it wasn't an easy thing, to make peace with that feeling of even difficult situations are something in your life that you can learn from. And I love I've watched your Instagram posts lately about gratitude. And for me, that is a very important thing, especially days that you fall a little bit, you get caught in this human trap of, busyness and all the anxiety and the whatever else is going on out there, and to realize actually gratitude. And if you can just be grateful for the simple things, like I see you grateful for the rain, grateful for the forest, grateful. I think that is the big thing that mushrooms teach you because they are a heart medicine. They are, I believe that they are mother energy. They're very female energy, and they teach you to be a bit more gentle with yourself. And I think that's a big lesson we learn in a lot of journeys, is a lot of females especially end up realizing how hard they've been on themselves. And for me, that was a big lesson, to be a bit kinder to yourself. And big lesson.
100%. A lot of big lessons along the way.
Yeah.
What have you guys learned from holding space as opposed to journeying yourselves? And I suppose those are two very different types of journeys.
Yeah, well, I mean, for me, for every time we hold space, I feel we learn something about ourselves. Even though the other person is journeying, we certainly learn more about ourselves and about how resilient we are, and how we need to trust our intuition, and how, we don't have all the answers. There are many, many times, especially in a challenging journey, when, we really don't know what to do. but sometimes all we need to do is just sit and hold the space and contain the person, and help them through what they're going through, without actually doing. It's more and more of we've learned to be as well as to do, if that makes sense.
100%. And yeah, building on that, working with individuals who bring anger or resistance to the journey, how would you approach that?
Yeah, it's the first journey that Michel and I held space for was for a very or a lot of anger came up for the journey or during the journey, and it was expressed particularly towards Michel, swearing at her, shouting at her, verbally attacking her. She the journeyer saw Michel as her mother and vented a lot of and projected a lot of anger onto Michel, to the point where eventually Michel had to leave the room, and I tried to contain the space, on my own. It was getting to the point where we were both afraid it might turn physical. So yeah, so Michel left the room, and I managed to calm the person down. It did get a little bit physical. We were sort of on the ground and holding each other like a scrum, a rugby scrum. but it was never, I've never felt unsafe in a journey space when we're holding space. And people have gotten physical. People have gotten really out of hand, but I never feel unsafe because I believe the mushrooms, have got our back, and they look after the person who's journeying as well. I don't believe there's any harm that can come during a mushroom journey. The only caveat to that is, and one of the things that we screen for is people that are bipolar or have had psychotic episodes. Then you're walking a bit of a tightrope. Then we kind of think twice before we agree to hold space for that person. But otherwise, I don't believe there's any harm that can really come during a mushroom journey. It might feel very unsafe. It might feel frightening. It might feel terrifying at times, but there's no real physical danger.
And I think that's the importance of a strong container.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, what does that even mean? What is a strong container? But yeah, maybe there's even how do you structure a container? Maybe someone's listening who would like to create their own safe space. It makes me really think. I think communities that meditate together stick together. I mean, I think in so many tribes, this must have been like so historic and such a part of the society thing. It's such a tragedy how rare it is today. That this is almost forgotten knowledge. But maybe someone's even listening. They've never even heard of mushroom journeys.
And this, sorry,
Felix, for one thing that comes to mind is to, I think the building up the trust is very important, but also to let go of control, because as counselors and as watchers, we've had females who sob their eyes out, and you want to go and put your arms around them and hold them and save them. And yes, we've had times where intuitively we felt we generally don't touch the person, but we have felt to maybe just put a hand on their shoulder, just let them feel that they are safe to let go. And I think that is where working as a couple kicks in quite a lot. And, but also realizing that this is their journey. And it's sometimes, I mean, I've ended up in tears watching a journey because it's really hard to see people going through those and letting go of those emotions, but you can't control that for them. This is their journey, and allowing them that, but letting them feel that they're held in this safe little cocoon space. And I think that is what we've had. I'm just thinking especially of women. We've had a few females who've had some severe trauma and have really, really battled emotionally. And we've had to just some of them, we've actually had to help them breathe because they start forgetting to breathe. But to make them realize that this is their journey. We are here as support, but we can't control it for them. We can't take away those emotions they're going through. And I think that's where one-on-one, where I find I've done some groups, Paul's done groups, and I'm not knocking groups at all. I think they have a very, very beneficial energy. But the difference in a group is you have to control it. So if someone starts wailing their eyes out and disturbing the group or screaming, you have to remove them from the room or tell them to keep quiet. When it's one-on-one, we allow people to cry their eyes out and sob and swear. And we've had people swear and swear and swear. We've had people shout, but allowing them to know that it's okay, but also letting go of that control where we want to control and help them. And as a counselor, you learn that this is their journey, this is their path, and you've just got to be there. Like as a counselor, you learn not to give advice. And I think the same is in a journey, is allow that person to express whatever they have to express. Obviously, if they're going to get up and start breaking everything in the room, we have to stop them. But we find, I think that's the hard part for me as an emotional being, is yes, it triggers my own emotions often, but I can't rush up and just suddenly put them in my arms and save them from that emotion. I've got to let them go through that. And interestingly enough, we've had two particular teenagers who the parents have approached us with these teenagers who've had severe trauma. And we actually got advice from a doctor, and eventually we hold space for two very young girls who've had incredible breakthroughs. And that was a very rewarding, that parents trust us with their 16-year-old children who have really gone through tough times, and one of them having seen a psychologist for years, and they've done journeys and their lives have changed. And that is, to me, so rewarding as a young teenager to know that this can change your life for the better,
Yeah, what is your thoughts on ages, and how does someone know when they're ready, or is it something that's prescribed? Does that make sense?
We're guided by the parents and by the individual themselves. I think 16 is by far the youngest people that we've ever held space for, and they were both extreme cases, where there was self-harm involved, there were eating disorders involved, there were attempted suicides involved. Their lives were really spiraling out of control, so drastic measures were required. And yeah, a lot of consultation with the journeyer, with their parents, with a whole team of medical professionals who were treating the journeyer, and our own connections, giving us advice from people that had held space for young people as well. So yeah, we definitely wouldn't enter that lightly. And I would say 16 is probably the lowest age we would hold space for, although we have had younger people than that microdosing, and again with really positive effects. Yeah, it's like Michel said, we take this leap of faith. We help these young people, and we see the improvement afterwards. I think in the years that we've been holding space, and all the people that we've worked with, I think we've had one person who, after the journey, said she felt she shouldn't have journeyed. She felt worse after the journey than before the journey, and that was an eye opener for us. We never expected that outcome, even though it was obviously possible. But yeah, that's one out of dozens and dozens of people that has had that experience. So I think because of that, provided we dot all the I's and we cross all the T's before we enter into the journey, then we're always reasonably confident of a positive result, whatever the
100%.
age. And we've had up to 75-year-olds that have journeyed with us, the other end of the spectrum, and people that have never experienced any sort of psychedelic substance, and lived their whole lives without smoking a joint. Although obviously everybody drinks, and that's probably the worst substance of all in my book. But yeah, so it's both ends of the spectrum, and both are equally powerful, and both are equally rewarding to us.
100%. And when someone has a bad reaction, what do you think is the cause of that? I think there's like some staying in the ego, maybe some not readiness, or
There's so many different circumstances. Unfortunately, today, a lot of people that come to us are on medication for psychological issues. And obviously, that medication interacts with the psilocybin, and it's going to affect the outcome. Generally, it just deadens or lessens the effect of the psilocybin. But there are some substances that don't play nicely together. Even non-prescription meds and recreational substances. We require a period of abstinence from all recreational substances prior to a journey. That's sort of non-negotiable, because from our experience, we've seen people that have vomited for 6 hours through a journey because they smoked a joint on the way to the journey. And it just makes it uncomfortable and unrewarding for them, and very uncomfortable and unpleasant for us.
a little bit of
Yeah, we do.
self-sabotaging, maybe.
Yeah. So we what we do is a week before the journey, we already get people on a special diet, no alcohol, no animal products. We help them get clean, well, even before if they can, but definitely a week before, because it is really important, to go into this as clean as possible. Never mind, your diet wise, but physically and in many other ways. But yeah, alcohol, not even alcohol for a week before. So yeah, we try our best to prepare people, but not everybody listens. So you do get people that we've even had people book a journey, and 2 days before they sabotage it and something will happen, and we've called it off because if it doesn't feel right to us and the person is not completely dedicated to the process, then we don't just do this for the money. It's not just about, we'll take your money. So what? And when you say a bad trip, for us, we've always found that a little bit of a negative connotation, because Paul and I have journeyed, and I mean, we've had some glorious ones where we've had the most exquisite experiences, and we've had some, I think my last two were really, really, really tough. But I don't call them bad. They weren't bad trips. They were what was necessary for me to get rid of whatever I had to in my life. But it's not a bad trip. And I think the hardest part to teach people, especially people who are really, really control, people who've OCD with control, is to teach them that if something difficult comes up, let go and just surrender. And I think that's where people call it a bad trip, but it's not a bad trip. It's just a very tough experience. And we've had that. We've had people who've wanted to leave the room and really, really wanted to get out of the journey, but we've helped them get through it. And afterwards, they sit with, and we have a nice big bowl of soup afterwards, and they all start laughing. But we've had people swear for like 2 hours nonstop, but they realize afterwards that was what they needed. So I think that is where we don't like the connotation of a bad trip, because unless you're not prepared. If you're not prepared and you don't follow the dietary requirements, and you can have an unpleasant experience and be nauseous, but touch wood, we've had most of our people not have that. And we've had 1 or 2 people purge afterwards, but more of an energetic purge where they feel that there was something they had to get rid of. But most people, luckily go through it without that. But I think the control and surrender is a very important aspect of it.
Yeah, if you try and fight the mushrooms, you're gonna come off second best. And people are reluctant to let go of control. They're so programmed their whole lives to keep things under control that they've forgotten how to let go. A lot of people. So yeah, that's a big part of the journey. And we generally find the more challenging the journey, the more positive effects you feel after the journey. So it's worth going through that 4 or 5 or 6 hours of uncomfortableness, to get to the other side.
I wonder what factors could help lean into that. I'm now even thinking of like a sweat lodge. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. I'm curious, what kind of things can be combined, or is it quite important to have a stimulus-free area? And yeah, what do you think about a dark room approach as opposed to having props or, I don't know, elements, suggestions?
Felix, we had one client who did go on quite a serious, and they went for some ozone saunas before, and what we do recommend to people is to get into nature. Go to the forest, go walk in the forest, go and connect with nature before. Because to me, I found that was one of the most beneficial things. Keep grounded, walk barefoot on the grass, on the beach. And we find the less stimulus you have. So we tell people not to watch the news, stay off social media for a while. The more stimulus you can let go of, I think it just helps you to go into a deeper space. If we do a day journey, we advise people to wear eye coverings so that they don't get distracted. So there are a lot of little things one can do. We make the room quite dark. We make the room quite pretty. I smudge the room before we do a journey. We put candles up. So we tell people to try and keep it internal. And then after a journey, we always tell them to go the next day if they can, go into the forest, go for a walk on the beach. And all these things add up to helping have a deeper experience and not just coming to just get high and have a trip, So there's a lot of factors that what I also was doing with some of the females at one stage, and I still will do it if females are keen. I've had women come to me before for a bit of Reiki or a massage, and it's just a very gentle Kundalini massage, balancing their energy. I've had some people come after the journey and I give them some Reiki and it just aligns them again. Because sometimes after a journey, you can feel quite ungrounded. You can feel a little bit spacey, that you're a little bit disconnected from the world out there. So I have a way of helping people to balance their energy in a very soft, gentle way, So yeah, we help people integrate with that way as well. And this is what our whole plan is at the moment. We're looking for a venue to have a weekend retreat where we can take people on a hike, get them into nature, give them beautiful fresh food, fresh juices, give them maybe a massage before, after, let them do even not a 5 gram, maybe even just a mini 3 gram or 2 gram journey and just experience it with everything together. And then eventually plan on doing a 5 gram. What we also try and do is get people to microdose before a journey. We find once they start microdosing, they get that connection with the mushrooms. And people who microdose before and after, something shifts in them before they even do the journey. So that's something we encourage as well. We do a range of different microdosing. We also do few party drug tricks. We do mushroom chocolates. We also do medicinal mushrooms. So we combine a package with a lot of our clients, We'll start helping them with medicinal mushrooms, with microdosing. Eventually, some of them will start that way, then lead to a journey. And we've had a lot of clients do that. They come on a whole journey with us before and after. And their health is improved, their mental health is improved. They find they're functioning better at work, they're focusing better. So yeah, we get a lot of ways of working with people, not just doing a journey. So that's the whole package we provide, which is really quite unique. A lot of places that do groups, you book your journey, you go and do your journey, and you leave, and that's it. For us, it's a whole integration of products we can help you with, plus a journey, plus afterwards, if they need counseling, we can help them with counseling. So it's a lovely package where people feel they're held in that container.
For me, it feels as if all the skills that we've learned over the years have brought us to this point, because they're all complement.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, and our passion is to share this with other people. This is and it's very easy to become complacent. When you're holding space for journeys 20, 30, 40 times in a year, it's very easy to get complacent. And that's why we ourselves journey to at least 2 or 3 times every year, just to remind ourselves just how powerful and how important this work is.
You've helped empower women who've experienced sexual trauma. What guidance can you offer to those on a similar journey of empowerment?
Felix, we've had some really severe cases, and quite tough ones, of women who've had either as a young in their youth had sexual trauma, or with a partner, a husband or partner.
Just to interrupt, we've had men as well with sexual trauma.
Yeah. So we are sorry, we've had men and women. And it's not an easy one, you know, because as you know, that trauma can come up again in a journey. I do Kundalini massages where I help women that have had sexual trauma, that get repressed sexually, that get a bit blocked sexually, and I've had very good results with helping some men as well. But I tend to focus more on women because of the connotations with a man. I've had some men that I've had a lot of trust with, but you know, it tends to be more women. I think there's a bit of a connotation when you work sexually with trauma with men, so I'm very cautious of that sort of thing, and I have very strict boundaries with that as well. But we've had women who have either come to me beforehand, and I've worked with them energetically, and then they come and do a journey, or they disclose to us when they meet with us about any sexual trauma they've had. So we know beforehand, and it has come up in journeys, and it can be quite a traumatic experience for them. But we had one particular female that had a really, really tough experience, and I eventually had to hold her hand for 5 hours through the journey. She just couldn't be left alone.
And she was quite scared of me. So had I been attempting to hold space for her on my own, it would have gone pear-shaped very quickly, I suspect. So again, the benefit of a male and female energy in the journey space.
You know, Felix, as Paul said, what we find is having the male female. So if in other words, if we get a female who comes up, she's had sexual trauma, or, you know, in her journey, she feels she's a bit afraid of a man, then there's me who can take over, or the other way around. So I think, you know, women alone with a man in a journey can be quite vulnerable. You know, there can be a vulnerability. We've even had one or two women who end up taking their top off or their pants off. And, you know, when you're alone and you come out of a journey, that can be quite a vulnerable space. So I think the benefit of a male-female is quite important as well.
100%. The feminine
and I think the male-female energy, you know, having a male and female energy, a lot of people find they feel that in the journey, you know.
What is your perspective on spiritual entities like angels or fairies in healing? Do they appear or play a role during your session?
You've gone a bit quiet, Felix. I'm struggling to hear you.
What is your perspective on spiritual entities like angels or fairies in healing? Do they appear or play a role during your sessions?
Yeah, I think for a lot of people they do. You know, people have come out of their journey or they're in their journey and they see us as angels, or they see us as some sort of spiritual entity, you know, which we're not. You know, we're just the safety blanket, the space holders, but that's how they perceive us at times. And yeah, I think in my own, we had a young man who journeyed with us recently, and he was a confirmed atheist. He'd been an atheist for all his adult life. And he came out of the journey and he said he touched the face of God in his journey. You know, I don't pretend to understand the spirituality of a sacred mushroom journey, but that doesn't mean it isn't there. That doesn't mean it isn't very, very real. I've experienced it myself, and I've seen other people that have experienced it. Michel is far more in tune with her own spirituality than I am. And yeah, you've picked up a lot of entities, not always friendly in journeys. Perhaps you'd like to speak to that a bit.
Can you hear us?
Yes. Yeah, feel free to expand.
Oh, don't know what's happened there. Sorry, Felix.
Hang on. Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Yeah, perfect.
We seem to be losing the connection.
Okay. Test.
Well, it can't be our Wi-Fi, can it?
No.
All good my side. You can't hear me? Test.
Aha.
Okay.
Yeah, got you back.
Got you back.
Okay, I don't know that. swapped microphones, but that's fine. I'll use this one.
Okay.
Yeah, feel free to expand on the entities, the positive and negative ones.
So yeah, Felix, there have been times, well, in my own journey, I've had connections with past lifetimes. I've been taken back to other lives where I've had some deep experiences. I've also had quite a connection with American Indian tribes, which sometimes come to me through my own journeys or when I'm holding space for other people's journeys. Are you okay there? Can you hear us?
Yes, all good, all good.
Good.
Something's lost there.
Test, all good.
Microphone.
Oh, what are those?
Hello, all fine.
You got
Okay.
us.
Yeah, we keep
Yes,
getting a
yes,
message
yes.
on the screen that it's reconnecting. It's coming up now, reconnecting and swirling around.
Don't worry about it. I don't think it's an issue.
Okay,
So
they're not
just
affecting
continue
it.
speaking. I can hear you fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, fantastic.
Yeah, so I've had an experience in my journeys. We've had clients who they'll suddenly start making the strangest sounds, and then they come out and we ask them, one of us will get an intuitive feeling, and we've had clients say yes, they started talking to their grandfather, or they saw a bird and they started communicating with a bird. We've had a few people do that. In my own journeys, I've been taken back to various previous lifetimes where I've literally felt myself there. And then also felt, can you hear us?
The guest has been lost. I'm going to take this opportunity to thank everybody for watching. Feel free to subscribe. Feel free to comment guests. And yeah, just appreciating anyone that's listening to this podcast, sending good energy to you. And yeah, I think very fascinating guests so far. Very deep work that they're working. Hopefully they can rejoin. And yeah, let's give it a second.
Hey, Felix.
You got us again.
We're back.
Yeah, back.
Awesome.
Technology.
Well, let's just try and restart that same question, and then I think we're good.
Yeah, so both of us, but I've had journeys where I've connected with past lives, and I've been taken there.
Maybe the entities are disrupting the stream. Hello, entities. We come in peace. We send love and light.
Yeah,
I think they're on to us.
yeah. I think they want to sabotage us a little bit.
Yeah.
Or otherwise they just want us to have a little bit of a break. But yeah, it's interesting, Felix, because I've been taken in journeys to lifetimes where I've shared a past life with Paul. I've been taken to places like Egypt, where I was in a temple and I was a goddess of, and I've got a friend who works a lot with taking trips to Egypt, and I told her about it, and she said, yeah, it's quite possible.
But the temple that you described, that you saw in your journey, she identified that temple as the Temple of Hathor in Egypt.
So we've been taken to, I've got a very strong connection with American Indians, and I've got one or two that come through my own journeys, but if I'm holding space, very often they come and just offer support. We've had times we sit in the room and we can literally you can feel the presence of someone. We've had people who come to us sometimes who don't always tell us about a loved one that's passed away. And we had a guy quite a while back who I kept picking up. Someone was in the room, someone close to him who passed away. And after the journey, we asked him, and his brother had passed away, and he had the ashes in the car, and it was, so we get that where we sometimes just feel a presence in the room, or we'll get a message, or in our own journeys. In my journeys, I've been taken to a few lifetimes where I've experienced. I've also had times where after a journey, I can feel I do entity clearing, where I have felt some quite negative entities that I've had to clear for, and I do it through smudging, through Epsom salt baths, where I've felt energies from other people, or because entities they can enter through so many various ways. And I know not everyone believes in entities, but they are quite real. And, when you're in a journey and when we're holding space, you're very open. So it's very easy for people to release those entities or for us to pick them up. But luckily I've learned to clear entities. But Paul and I have had experiences where I've been taken to places where I felt we've shared a life together. And it's very real, very, very real.
Wow, that is very beautiful. It's almost like the plant medicine can teach you about locations and times that there's almost no other way you could have learned those things or experienced those things.
Absolutely.
It's incredibly profound. When you experience it for yourself, it's incredibly profound and very moving.
I mean, school is very important, but there's other ways to be elevated and educated.
Absolutely.
I learned more from one mushroom journey than I learned from all the years in school. I promise you that.
And another thing we haven't mentioned, Paul and I also love doing, to us, mushrooms connect you to nature. I have a very deep connection with nature, and that's why I love the forest, especially trees. I find the mycelium connection quite fascinating in a forest. And we go to Newlands is one of our favorite, and we see the mushrooms there, and you just see this connection. You see it in the trees. And there was a wonderful book I read many, many years ago called The Language of Trees, about how trees communicate with each other for miles and miles and miles. And nature does, And we love taking people up the West Coast. We take people to the dunes, and we go and do day journeys there. And the connection to nature, because you don't get distracted by music. You're out in nature, so everything, your senses are heightened. Excuse me. And it is just the most mind-blowing experience. I wouldn't recommend it for your first journey because it can be quite overwhelming. But when you've done a journey or two, it is the most incredible experience, because everything, the birds are louder, the sea, the colors, it's a phenomenal experience. And Paul and I have, many times taken like a mini dose of mushrooms. We go into nature and we have the most incredible experience with nature.
You can immediately feel a different connection with nature. I'm sure you know yourself. We might microdose or maybe take 200 milligrams and go for our forest walk, and you can feel the difference. The colors are brighter, the smells are more vivid, the sounds are just so beautiful. The sound of running water, the sound of the wind in the trees and the birds. It's just a whole nother level of experience.
So
I think nature is one of our greatest teachers.
Yeah.
Right? You see the way branches grow around each other, how they leave gaps for each other, or they find another way.
Absolutely.
To the sun.
Yeah.
We go away quite a lot to look after someone's home up in the country, and they've got the most exquisite garden with these variety of birds, and we sit and watch these little weaver birds literally building their nest from scratch
for hours.
Going to get one little piece of twig and then another piece, and you learn so much about the dedication, and they just don't give up until the sun sets, And we were there recently and we were watching, and I said to Paul, my gosh, this tiny little bird has been working like 9 hours and just not stopping until the sun sets, and not complaining, not saying, oh my God, I'm exhausted, I'm tired. And that is where human nature, we get sucked into this way of society, and we find, so what we do with mushrooms, we don't just do the spiritual side. We do provide for people who go to festivals. And we've got a specific capsule that we've made with 400 milligrams of mushroom powder. And I had a friend of mine who was going to with her family. Her whole family takes mushrooms. And they were going to an event, and they wanted something to make them happy and feel fun and light. And we made them a capsule, and they all went to this event. And she phoned me afterwards. She said, oh, you've got to call it Happy Feet, because we couldn't stop laughing and dancing. So we make this capsule now that we call Happy Feet. and people phone us and they buy these happy feet for all sorts of either parties or festivals. So we like the spiritual side, but there's the fun side of it as well. So we make little chocolates with little heart chocolates with a bit of mushroom in it, and people buy it for dinner parties, and it brings the lightness into it,
We find that there's a more conscious youth today. They don't want to go and drink half a bottle of tequila and put last month's celery up their noses at a festival. They want to be conscious, but they want to have fun. And mushrooms for them is a way of doing that. They take half a gram or a gram and have the best time of their lives, and wake up the next day feeling fantastic. Feeling better than the day before. It's like a no-brainer. In my opinion, everybody should stop drinking and start mushrooming.
I had a guy recently. Yeah, I had a guy recently him and 12 friends were going hiking. So they came and bought some mushrooms, and all of them took some mushrooms on their hike.
Beautiful. Yeah, I'm curious, what's your thoughts on dosages? And maybe you can provide us like a map of like 100 milligrams is this.
Yeah,
Is there a linearity? How would I even say that?
There is and
Is
there
it
isn't.
does it compound, or is it is it a curve like that, or is it yeah? But yeah, try and speak into that, and how different strains can obviously have different strengths, and how can someone expect? What can someone expect? Maybe they've never taken mushrooms before.
So generally, when I make a journey powder or a microdosing powder or a recreational mix, I use at least 4 or 5 or 6 different strains of mushroom. And it's not a science, Felix. It's very intuitive, and I trust the right mushrooms to find the right people at the right time for the right purpose. You have to have that trust in the medicine. And from a dosage point of view, I mean, we've held space for journeys. We used to each take 1 gram, which is a relatively low dose when we were holding space for journeys. We've had to cut that back to half a gram and sometimes less, because we were going so deep into our own journeys while we were holding space, that we felt that if something went wrong, we needed to be a bit more present to be able to assist our journeyers. So we've reduced that dose. And having said that, we sometimes will take 1 gram at a festival, and it'll feel as if it's a very, very mild, pleasant, fun, laughing, dancing kind of dose. So sort of as a rule of thumb, a microdose for us is 100, 150, maximum 200 milligrams. A more recreational dose is that up to 1 gram, even 2 grams, depending on the set and the setting. And then anything over 2 grams, you're heading more into the journey space. But yeah, set and setting for me plays as much of a role as dosage and as mix and as strains. And sometimes I hear of people that take 10 grams, 15 grams, 24 grams of mushrooms, for a journey. And in my experience, anything more than 5 grams is actually a waste of mushrooms. From my own experience, I'm not knocking anybody else's ideas, but from my own experience, I've had 7 grams, I've had 5 grams, and I've had a very profound journey on 2 grams. So yeah, dosage. It's not all about dosage. There's a lot of people, especially people that are taking for the first time. We always say, start low. Start with half a gram. Start with 0.4 of a gram. You can always add more. You can't take away once you're in it.
100%. And can you speak into strains at all, and even other plant medicines that maybe you guys have knowledge on, or what you recommend, don't recommend?
Look, from a strain point of view, obviously some strains like your albino penis envy is renowned for having a very high strength, whereas something like Thai or Brazilian is a more playful. Golden Teacher was always the go-to recreational strain that everybody has heard of. Golden Teacher, but Golden Teacher can be quite strong as well. it's not just the strain. The strains can vary from grow to grow, the amounts of psilocybin in a mushroom. You can't look at a mushroom and know how much psilocybin is in there. It's all trial and error. You take a little bit and try it and see where it takes you, and then build from there. Felix, I'm not sure if you can hear me. We seem to be reconnecting again.
Mm. Something on his side. And we need to do that again.
Back again.
Yeah.
I think we were talking plant medicines and strains.
Yeah. Yes. So from a strains point of view, you can't look at a mushroom and see how much psilocybin is in that mushroom. There's no way of doing that unless you take it to a lab and test the content. But even testing the content of a particular strain, the content may well be different on the next grow. So yeah, I try not to get too hung up on strains. We're aware that some strains are stronger than others. When we're making a mix, we generally work with some so-called lower strength strains, mixing it with some higher strength strains. And I always feel a mix is better than a single strain. That's in my experience. But yes, and as for other plant medicines, we don't really work with any other plant medicines. We've both experienced different psychedelics in the form of LSD and MDMA. But yeah, mushrooms are our true calling. That's where we feel the most at home.
Beautiful. Is there any mentors or teachers that you could mention?
We've lost your sound again, Felix.
Yeah.
Test 1, 2.
Maybe we just got to it's meant to end now. Yeah. So it seems to be a signal thing. Because I see at the bottom there it goes down to like 30%.
Yeah, it's on 98%.
Something with a signal.
It seems to be on our side because this side is 99%.
I wonder if it's our Wi-Fi. No. Maybe we're just not meant to carry on.
Is there any spiritual teachers or mentors and teachers that you guys can mention? I mean, one for me that comes to mind is Terence McKenna.
Yeah, Terence McKenna. More recently, Gabor Mate. He's been doing a lot of interesting work.
Yeah, Andrew Huberman.
From a scientific point of view, from a neuropsychology point of view.
There's Dr. Robin Carhart-Harris. They're doing a lot of very fascinating tests at the moment. And he's got we've got a wonderful YouTube interview. Michael Pollan, of course. So there's some amazing people doing, Russell Brand's been promoting mushroom journeys, even recently we saw Sting talking about it. And it seems to be coming to the forefront more and more and more. Even in movies you watch nowadays, they drop a little bit of something about mushrooms. But Gabor Mate is doing some amazing work at the moment with trauma and addiction, and that is really powerful. Yeah, so there's a lot of work coming up, and we've had some psychologists journey with us, clinical psychologists. We've had one who works with eating disorders and refer clients to us, and really had phenomenal results. So it's so good that the mainstream um, medical world is starting to open up to it. Not everyone, but we've even had one or two GPs approach us. And they definitely are becoming more interested and more curious about it, which is fantastic.
Having said all of that, I always say we like to view this as a spiritual experience that may have therapeutic benefits. So the emphasis is more on the spiritual experience and learning about yourself and about your own soul and your own journey. Whether or not
secular way, I think.
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah.
Whereas
Yeah,
I suppose other places that do offer that is like your churches, but there is that secularity to it.
Yeah.
And what comes to mind even is of Vipassana, but they're also non-secular.
Yeah. And what I find with a lot of that, and in each to their own, is they have certain restrictions. There's always a bit of restriction. There's always a little bit of control. It's whereas for me, what the spirituality of mushrooms has brought, it's shown me a much bigger picture than this physical dimension here and this world that we get sucked into. For me, the spiritual side is seeing the bigger picture of what's outside of us. And I mean, I think even removing that fear of death that society puts on us and the guilt, that a lot of religions place on people, which and the conditioning that we get in schools, parents, religions, and I'm not knocking any of them, but it's all about conditioning. It's all about putting you in little boxes, when you do something like this, it takes you out of that paradigm where you start realizing what are all these little boxes we put into all our lives, either by teachers or parents or churches or religions. And there are a lot of boxes, and it's all well and good. You can combine religion and spirituality, but unfortunately, religion is not always spiritual, if you know what I mean.
My biggest problem with organized religion is that theirs is the only way forward. There's 3,000 different religions, and they all are the only way forward.
And a lot of judgment.
Yeah.
So, we find with mushrooms, we don't judge whether you Jewish or Muslim or black or white or whatever.
And we've held space for all faiths.
We've held space for people who come, Muslim people who, might be against their faith, but we've held space for people from all different walks of life. And I think that is the important part, is not to let people feel restricted, and I think that's where the spiritual side of it comes, which is far bigger than a religious thing, if that makes sense,
Yeah, 100%. I'm curious, what do you understand of like mushroom history and maybe how humans have integrated with mushrooms in the past, and then how do you see it evolving more into the future?
Yeah, I think. I mean, we know that mushrooms have been around and have been used spiritually for thousands and thousands of years, and we also know that the Catholic Church, when they arrived in South America, tried to completely repress the mushrooms for obvious reasons. If you can take a mushroom and see God yourself, you don't need to go through a priest or a bishop or a pope. You can just there's no middleman. You have a direct connection to the divine, which terrified the Catholics. And most organized religions would be very anti that. As to the way forward, I'm a little bit scared for the way forward, to be honest. I'm afraid that I'm excited about all the scientific research and all the great strides that are being made, in psychotherapy and psychedelic therapy. But I'm afraid that the drug companies will get involved and try and synthesize the psilocybin, which they've already done, and then they'll synthesize the spirit out of the experience. Yeah, they'll make it a very expensive substance, which is only for the super wealthy. I mean, already there are mushroom retreats happening in Jamaica, which cost $20,000-$30,000 US to attend. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. So I'm a little bit scared. I'm a little bit scared for the way forward with psychedelics. I believe that the way we're doing it now, it's not the only way, but at the moment, and for us, it feels like the right way.
And the concern is that it might become very clinical. So you'll go and sit with people with white jackets on, clipboards in a bright room, and which has its place, but it takes away that absolute beauty of what a journey can be. And I think that is where you're going to get, a lot of control issues coming in again. And it'll, we had a client come out from America who came out especially to do journeys because it's so expensive to fly to a country. Well, there are some states in America, but you're looking at $10,000 to do a journey.
It's cheaper to fly to Cape Town and have 2 or 3 journeys here than it is to experience that in the States.
We had a particular client who came out for 6 months and the whole family did journeys because it was cheaper to be here and then do it in America and under very controlled clinical environment. Now, in How to Change Your Mind on the program that Michael Pollan's done, they give a really good example of a journey, but it is in a clinical environment, which of course legally they have to do that to protect themselves. But it's not the true reflection of what it is. You really are sitting in you may as well be in a clinic. Now,
maybe that's a documentary that needs to be made.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you go back to Maria Saban, Maria, what was this? Maria Saban in Mexico. She used to, many years ago, she used to walk outside and just pick a mushroom and sit and have a spiritual experience. The American Indians did the same. They would just take mushrooms and sit and have around the fire, and they'd all connect with their ancestors. And that is how the hieroglyphics in the temples. A friend of mine took photographs recently. All along the side of the temple, there's hieroglyphics about mushrooms. So they've been taken for centuries. Yeah. But unfortunately, a lot of westernized fear came into it and political fear. And that's where it's been controlled, because a lot of medical people are fearful of what it might take business away from them,
And on the other side of that, now that there are a lot of people coming in and calling themselves shamans and ritualizing the experience unnecessarily. I believe the power is in the mushroom. It's not us. We don't do the work. It's the mushroom and the journey that do the work. We just provide a safe space for them to do that in. There's a lot of people over ritualizing the experience, in my opinion.
And if you had to dream of a future where families are maybe more integrated with mushrooms and communities, what could that look like?
Wow. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. Obviously, the first step is decriminalizing and or legalizing mushrooms, then making them readily available to people, making it not prohibitively expensive, and education. Make it a part of mainstream education. This is how you work with psilocybin. This is how you work with psychedelic substances. The kids are out there experimenting and experiencing it anyway. So rather teach them the right way. If you could teach them in school, geez, I tell you what, your attendance records would go up straight away. I think there's a greater need for education around sacred mushrooms. There is a lot available. There's a lot of information on YouTube, on the web, but not all of it is 100% kosher. So you need reliable and honest education would probably be the first step to bringing it into a family environment. And then I think it'll take a number of years. People would need to grow up with that experience, as the way they did in the early days in Mexico. They grew up as it was their church, it was their family shared experience, and it would be really beautiful to see that happening again.
Yeah, it is.
I think it would. I think it would change a lot of people's ideas of what a good, healthy life is.
100%. I think it is just so fascinating how in certain regions this substance, this plant medicine is so part of their lives, and in other places it's illegal. And it's like, why is alcohol and cigarettes and vapes the substances and coffee, the ones that win. And it's like I find it very fascinating that different areas have different things, and I also find like things that are indigenous to certain places, like for example rooibos and scaletium in South Africa. I'm like, okay, maybe those regions need that more, or yeah, I mean, even just having seasonal fruits is very important.
Yeah. It's people ignore the fact that alcohol kills more people worldwide than all of the illegal street drugs combined. And that's a fact. It's a medical fact. And yet alcohol is legal, not just legal. If
Shoved down
we
your
don't drink, we
throats,
don't drink.
sold to
Yeah,
you on the
exactly.
radio, on the newspaper. You
Yeah.
go on to the
Everywhere you
shop,
live.
it's buy one get one free. You know.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, if we stood outside a shop selling heroin, promoting heroin like that, they would take us away and lock us up on the turn. But alcohol is as destructive to the health, to the family unit, to society, to communities. There are whole communities, particularly here in the Western Cape, where 70-80% of the children are born with fetal alcohol syndrome. They don't have a chance in life because of this legal, promoted, glamorized substance. It's actually terrifying to me.
Yeah, it actually makes me think. I think I was watching the Springboks the other day, and I saw their jersey. It was like
We've lost you again, Felix. We can't hear you.
test.
Oh, there we go. Hang on.
It reminds.
No,
Oh.
gone again. Okay, you're back.
It reminds me of this. I was watching the Springboks the other day, and they were wearing a jersey. It was like one nation, one jersey, one beer. Like,
Yeah. I mean, really, yeah.
Yeah. You drink a case of beer and go out on the field with those Springboks and see what happens to you.
Yeah. Crazy. And on the other hand, Felix, I mean, I've got, well, one particular family I can think of, and the mother has always been very open to, and her daughter, from the age of 14, she's had her on mushrooms, microdosing. She's done little mini 1 gram journeys for her whole family. And they are so bonded, and they have the most amazing connection. And we've had families who I've got another family whose son is, I think, 9 years old, and he's on a 50 milligram microdose. And she says, all of a sudden, his attention span has changed. He's much more calm. So we're seeing younger people who are saying, I don't want to go the medical route anymore, and they are not much, but they are starting to infiltrate. But it's beautiful to see when a family starts opening up to it,
Yeah.
and they open up for their children to explore it instead of saying, oh, this is dangerous, you mustn't do this. And we're finding, I mean, I had a guy recently who, him and 12 friends went on a hike, and they bought mushrooms, and they weren't going to drink the whole weekend. And they went on away for the weekend, and they each took 1 gram, and they had the most amazing weekend together. So we're getting more and more of that, that young people are phoning us and saying, I want something pure, I want something good. And that is really, it's nice to see.
Yeah, from my own experience, alcohol disconnects me and takes me away from myself and from society, whereas mushrooms do the opposite. They bring me back into myself, and they connect me to the whole universe.
what a beautiful note to end on, unless there's any closing thoughts from your side. Any questions you wish I
thank you for
asked,
allowing
or anything that's still on your heart to be shared?
Yeah, I think we've covered quite a lot. It's been a privilege for us both to, as you probably picked up, we're fairly passionate about the work that we do and about working with sacred mushrooms, and we're passionate about helping people and reconnecting people, especially couples, helping them to find their best lives together. Thank you for allowing us the space to talk about our passion.
Thank you,
Felix. It really has been beautiful.
Yeah, I'm even curious, what's your thoughts on being public with this knowledge? And yeah, it feels like there's so many voices, but I don't feel like they're being heard.
Yeah. we would love, I mean, we have got little Instagram pages, and we do, But, as you know, we are dealing with a substance that if we get caught with 1 gram, we go to jail, which is absolutely insanity. We're driving in our car with 5 grams of mushrooms, we can go to jail. And that is the sad part, is we would love to blast this out everywhere. I mean, we often joke, we'd love every politician to do a journey, and maybe we'll have a different, every politician should do a journey.
I think it should be a requirement for people that hold public office, for policemen, for doctors, for any sort of professional. I think they should be forced to journey before they're allowed to hold these positions.
And that's the tough part for us, Felix, is that we still have to be, if you want to call it, undercover, even though it is becoming much more public. People aren't as scared to advertise it because they're realizing this is the way forward. But it still is, unfortunately, not acceptable in the legality. So we have to be a little bit undercover, which is really very frustrating for us,
But here we are.
And yeah, we are. We're promoting it, and we're just trusting again that we'll be safe. And we have got particular friends who have been caught with mushrooms and had to go to jail and have got court cases against them. And that is this very sad part of it, because you can go to a club, which Paul and I have done, and someone's snarfing coke in the bathroom, and they're dealers in the club, but God forbid you get caught driving with 2 grams of mushrooms, you go straight to jail. It's insanity. And that is where the frustrating part is for us. We do advertise a bit on social media, but we have to be cautious. And that is where we're hoping that it'll become more mainstream and public, but at the same time, not where it's controlled by pharmaceutical companies. That's all the spirit out of it, a money-making thing. And, Paul and I, even if we get people who phone us saying, look, I can't really afford a journey, we'll give them a better price. We'll work out something for them, we'll do a barter even.
We don't like to turn anybody away who feels called to journey.
Beautiful.
I think that's it again.
To end on a quote, if a law
we've lost you again, Felix.
Yeah. I think it's meant to end.
Test.
Yeah.
To end on a quote.
Okay. So
if a law is
from us or from you?
unjust, a man is not only right to disobey it, he is obligated to do so. Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Well said. Well said. No, Felix, thank you so much for giving us this opportunity and for just approaching me to do this. We've spoken mainly about our mushrooms. We do all the other work as well, but I think they all just connect with each other, But we're really so grateful that you've opened your space for us. Thank you.
Thanks so much. And I think that's really what life's about, is weaving our passions, our interests, and seeing how they all come together in the end.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And thank you for your inspiring Instagram posts. They're lovely. Thank you.